Hey folks, Rob Flux here with another Real Deal on the Field, here with Brett, one of my former students at his current project here in Burleigh Heads, Koala Park. So firstly, mate, congratulations, it's a fantastic project.
Thank you.
Burleigh Heads is a long way from home. And so you're from Melbourne, mate.
Yeah.
What made you pick on a site here in Burleigh Heads in Queensland?
Well, probably firstly that there's not much happening in Melbourne right at the moment, or hasn't been for the last couple of years, but also I came across this opportunity with the relative here and the land that they owned in Burleigh Heads, and saw that there was an opportunity for us to team up in a joint venture.
Yeah, so picking up on the subtleties of that, folks, I guess someone you knew owned a property, had owned it for a very long period of time, and so what they bought it for and what it's currently worth today meant that there was a whole bunch of equity built into the property, which meant that this was pretty much a low money down. I won't say no money down. What did you have to do from a funding perspective in this particular deal?
Look, we looked at all the options. One of the, I suppose we got to commercial loan in the end with Latrobe, was the deal that we went with. We had to basically, there was a small loan on the existing property, so part of that process was the Latrobe taking over that loan, and then...
But then tapping into that equity, and that equity securing the construction phase, but you had to fund, I guess, the development approval stage and a couple of other elements along the way.
Because we hadn't purchased the property initially and it was being held by the landowner, we didn't want to start the construction facility until we actually signed the construction loan. So I funded all the preliminaries around the planning and engineering up to the point in where we got the construction facility approved. And at that point, we took over the small loan that existed on the original property and went from there.
We'll see a couple of other elements where you had to tip in as well, trying to order in some things like a lift from overseas, having to put down deposits on that. When they're being manufactured overseas, folks, that can be a little bit challenging because your funder won't fund it until it physically lands on site. So that's always a cash flow challenge.
Correct. So even though the funding amount covered the full contract value of the build, it wasn't until late in the piece that I understood things like the lifts would need to be paid up front. So the lift manufacturers required an initial deposit on signing of 10 or 20%, and then another payment of around 40% once they went into manufacture overseas. And that was never going to be signed off by the QS to be paid back through the
until it physically lands on site, and at this moment in time, they haven't yet landed on site. So you've had to cash flow that along the way.
Yeah, so they were due on the site based on their own timelines in March. We're now they're coming to site tomorrow, I believe, which is about 2 months late. But look, at this point, they were asking for another payment, another 30% for them to come to site, which they haven't asked for just yet. I assume that's because they've been late on their delivery, so I haven't asked the question, but effectively I need to come up with another 30%, for their install on site before I will then be able to get it approved in the claim and repaid for that money. Yeah.
So we're going to go inside and have a look at it first, but before we do, mate, how many units and how big are they?
So 4 units, all side-by-side townhomes, 3 levels, and private rooftops for each of them. All 3 bedroom, pretty similar spec. They are slightly different sizes, slightly different configurations. 3 bedrooms.
And literally spitting distance from the beach, from the water.
Creek. Yeah, Talle Creek and Burleigh Heads just around the corner there.
Yeah, it's a great location, mate. So let's go check them out and we'll have a look at what the view opens up when we get to the top floor. See you in a sec. So here we are on the inside, mate. Tell us a little bit about the specs of it. And firstly, this is one of the more progressed units and we're right approaching the end. How far until they're actually finished and you get occupation certificate?
So estimated completion date at the moment is right on 4 weeks from now, and the contract completion date's about 3 or 4 weeks after that as well. So
you've still got time, you're ahead of the curve. That's just fantastic. So we can see behind us, we've got, I guess, the kitchen. You're standing in the lounge, folks. Just over here is a lift. That gentleman won't fall down the lift hole, but mate, the lift goes from ground floor all the way to the roof, yeah?
Yep, absolutely. 4 levels, all private lifts in each one of the townhomes. So 2-person lift and Italian made. A lot of hype coming around these, so can't wait for them to go in.
Very good. Well, looking forward to that. So, okay, what is the configuration? Ground floor, we've got...
double garages. Yep. So all got double garages with space there for mudrooms or laundry configurations, how each owner wants to fit them out. staircase up here to the bedrooms. So
bedrooms level, what, level 1?
Yeah, level 1. So we've got all three bedrooms, ensuite, and then shared bathroom for the other 2 bedrooms. Up the stairs to the living area, we've got a little specific dining area, lounge area. We've got the lifts over to the right. We've got a built-in pantry around to this side and a powder room around to the other side of the kitchen. Cooking and more bench space, fridges over to the left. We've got extra large sort of breakfast bar benches going in on the island benches here. And we did make a late change to the design too. We didn't have the bench space there behind the island bench initially, but I wanted to move the sinks off the island bench and create that space. And I think that's probably one of the really good features of the kitchen now. We've got a little balcony out here for a small table and chairs off the living. And then upstairs to private rooftop. So we've got an enclosed area that has, again, more bench space, little powder room, little bifold doors out to the open rooftop, and then quite a substantial rooftop, really. Almost, the half the size of the footprint of the building is rooftop space up there.
Yeah, it's really nice up there, and I guess the one on the end gets the master views of the water at the moment. So
while it lasts, but yes, it certainly does at the moment. Yeah.
But mate, what are some of the challenges that you had along the way?
So probably early on was one being remote from the site. So liaising with, there's obviously digital ways of being able to liaise with people, but nothing sort of beats actually going and talking to the consultants and engineers and builders out here. So being remote was one that I had to get over.
You managed to solve that one though, because as you said, you actually in a joint venture with one of your relatives. So they're physically living almost across the road.
Yeah, basically. So it was good to be able to, even though I'm not here, it was good to have feet on the ground really as part of our joint venture team. So it's not that I have been completely blind to it, but I have had assistance here day to day throughout the build.
Yep.
And then, the joint venture, so going through getting a joint venture agreement written up and all the terms and conditions, that was new to me. I hadn't been through that process before. And, there's obviously the business side of it too, but having that agreement with a relative, to me, makes it even more important. Some people might think, a relative don't need an agreement, but to me, it's not just money or business relationships you're potentially losing or destroying, it's family as well. So, we took a while to sort of work through that and make sure we were all comfortable with it before sort of progressing into the build stage. And
I would say categorically that everyone should have a joint venture contract, no matter what, no matter who the person is. We go into marriages where we love someone and 50% of them fail. When you go into a relationship and that love element is not in there, in this instance it's a relation. I don't know how good your love bond is there, but wherever money's involved, you really need to have a very clear what happens if this happens, what happens if the next thing happens. You're going to plan for the worst and then you're going to manage to the best, and that's really the goal of the outcome.
And even just, I know from when I was going through the course, Rob, there was lots of questions around, how much should the percentage split be and how do we work? And, there's really no black or white answer. We had to work through all the things that could happen, and because I was putting in money for the preliminaries, how much was that going to cost and how much is that worth in the scheme of things? So that was something that, we worked through over time. We weren't sort of rushing into it. It wasn't something that was just all about getting it done as quickly as we could. We wanted to feel comfortable about it. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so roughly, how long did that process take to go through those negotiations?
Look, the joint venture sort of side of things and that final stuff before we went to a build contract was, 6 to 12 months. We probably spent over 2 years
discussing it.
From the original sort of discussions around, is it worth it? What would it look like? As I say, we weren't in a rush. It was a principal place of residence for the vendor. There was no reason for us to rush it other than, we just wanted to get through it and be comfortable with it. So over 2 years all up, and then, that joint venture thing was probably best part of 6 to 12 months before we actually signed off on it. Yeah,
very good. Okay, well, let's go up to the roof and take a check out of that, mate. Here we are at the top, folks, with the spectacular view over the Talle River. Mate, this is a fantastic view.
Yeah.
This is going to be the unit that actually, you said the family member that you're doing a JV with, so they're going to get advantage of that for a good couple of years before somebody moves in next door. But, mate, what would you say would be one of the best lessons that you actually got out of the project?
For me, probably the one biggest takeaway has just been the relationship with the builder that I've had and making sure you've got the right builder. Although I did my due diligence with speaking to other shortlisting, speaking to other builders, getting indications of pricing from them around, or budgetary pricing right from before we even got to final plans, you know, I wouldn't be chasing the cheapest quote, the absolute cheapest builder, making sure you've got the right one, making sure they're communicating. The early engagement, for me, the early engagement and the effort that was put in throughout the engineering process really showed me that they were, how keen they were, and you know, that they were someone that I could really trust and rely on as part of the build. And I think that's probably testament to the fact that I haven't had to be up here on the doorstep every sort of week throughout the construction process. But obviously, you know, as everyone says, having a good team, making sure you got the right consultants and know the people that you need to talk to.
Absolutely. So, folks, I guess this is your third project. So, a fairly decent sized project for deal number 3, mate. What would you say for absolute newbies wanting to start out and how quickly they can actually scale if they put their mind to it?
Yeah, look, you've just got to take the steps, be confident in yourself, do the research, do your due diligence, and take the step. Make it happen, really, I suppose. Yeah,
absolutely. So, mate, we're looking forward to hearing the full story at the upcoming meetup where you're going to present the entire real deal from start to finish. The question for you is, given this is a Queensland project and you're living in Melbourne, where are you going to do the real deal, mate? You're going to do it in Queensland or Melbourne?
Good question. I'm happy for the invite up to Queensland if you want to come and get me.
Yeah. We'll make it happen. Either way, folks, if you want to see real deals from start to finish, just like this particular one, come to one of our meetups. We run them all the way around the country. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and now Perth. So looking forward to seeing you at one of those until the future. Mate, well done. Congratulations.
Thanks, and
super proud of you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you,
Cheers.
folks.